Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly in World of Tanks. It's been a long time since I did one of these, but, well, you've all been very, very good boys and girls for your Uncle Jingles, so I think you deserve one. God, that sounded really creepy. I don't promise I won't do that again. We're going to start off today's proceedings with this Tier 10 battle on the highway map submitted by Infinity 631 in the Tier 10 Soviet tank destroyer, the Object 263. This machine is not a particularly popular choice. I mean, I think it's really good, but I appear to be in the minority here, and I think the reason for that is because it doesn't have the huge alpha damage gun that you expect on a Tier 10 tank destroyer, unlike the Object 268, the Jaegeru, the Death Star, the T110E4 and the T110E3. This gun only pumps out 550 damage per shot, not the 850 damage per shot that most of them had when they were released, not even the post-nerf 750 alpha damage per shot, just 550. But it has laser-like accuracy, extremely high penetration, a fairly decent aiming time, and a much faster reload. It has insanely good damage per minute. The damage per minute on the Object 263 is so good, it's even slightly better than the Su-122-44 premium Tier 7 Soviet tank destroyer, which isn't brokenly overpowered at all. Honest. It also has very good mobility with a top speed of 55 km per hour and a medium tank standard of power to weight ratio with 7.5 horsepower per ton. It's all about the gun on this thing though. In many ways it's a lot like a Tier 10 Jagdtiger, except it's a very low profile and sneaky target, unlike the Jagdtiger. I could say a lot of good things about the Jagdtiger, but sneaky it very definitely is not. And the 263's frontal armour is very good. 250mm at its thickest, but it's all sloped. You see, that's the thing about tank destroyers that have low alpha damage but high DPM. In order to make the most of that DPM, you have to stay shooting at your targets. You can't just roll out, derp a shot in the general direction, do all of your damage in one hit, and then roll back into cover. Potentially, you have to stay exposed to enemy fire to make the most of the high rate of fire of the gun. That can be an issue in the Jagdtiger, because at the end of the day it's a Tiger II hull, and it has a very weak lower glacis. But there's nothing weak about the frontal armour on the Object 263. As we're about to demonstrate, he got spotted when he took a shot at the T110E5 there, and ding, ding. You can penetrate the lower glacis of this thing. Its effective thickness from the front is about 175mm, but this is a very squat, low-profile machine. It's not easy to even see the lower glacis on it, let alone hit it. The upper glacis, you may as well just forget about it. Everything above the lower glacis from the front on this thing, if you don't have a minimum of 350mm of penetration, then just forget it. Shoot at something else, because you will not penetrate. That's not to say that the machine is completely... Oh, hang on a second. Shots out. AMX 5100. His tracks absorb it. Unbelievable. What's more unbelievable is the fact that after surviving a hit from an Object 263, and there's a T-34 right next to him, he rolls out again. For some more. So, well, you know, thanks for the free damage. Certainly not going to complain. But yes, where were we? It's not that the Object 263 is completely without frontal weak spots. There's actually an armour hole behind the very tough gun mantlet. Now, you can't hit that armour hole directly, but if you were to spam the gun mantlet with high explosive, the splash would penetrate and go through into the crew compartment. The sides of this machine are paper thin. Oh, there's the T110E5 he shot at earlier. 290mm of penetration, straight through the machine gun cupola. T110E5 thinks to himself, I bet you can't do that again. Infinity says, challenge accepted. Oh, suddenly a surprise WZ-111 pops out. Standard tactics when in close combat with a turretless tank destroyer are to charge him and get around his side, which the WZ-111 completely fails to do, allowing Infinity to keep the front of the machine pointed towards him. The WZ-111 does do one thing right though, this shot here. See that? Bang. Now that's something you can only really pull off at point blank range, but he slipped that shot in right in the gap between the gun mantlet and the hull of the tank, and that will penetrate from the front. This, and I'm pretty sure Infinity would agree, was a terrible shot at the Death Star. That was a guaranteed ricochet at that kind of angle. Next 2 shots fired at him, both should have been aimed at the lower glacis. At that range and that angle, you can and will penetrate the lower glacis of the Object 263 from the front in both of those tanks. But nobody really knows where to shoot this thing because it's so rare, you hardly ever see it. Although you could argue, and you'd be right, that shoot the lower glacis is advice that generally works for 99% of the opponents that you're going to face in World of Tanks, as long as they're not the VK4502, but, well, apparently aiming is hard. This is where things start to get a bit sticky for Infinity. The team are outnumbered up to the north defending their cap, but it's the tanks in the town who aren't really in a position to help in the north or the south. Which means Infinity is basically fighting these guys by himself. Now, he is capable of killing them both, but they both have guns that can penetrate his lower glacis, and he doesn't have the advantage of terrain in order to hide that lower glacis. There you go, the VK has learnt the lesson and is starting to fire at his frontal weak spot. The AMX, not so much. Although, bizarrely, the VK's next shot is high explosive. And he fired it into the tracks rather than aiming for the gun mantlet. But the cavalry has arrived. The VK-100's turned up and he's on full health. There is also a full health E-100 further north in the town, but he doesn't appear to be in any rush to make his way down to the south and join the rest of the team. WZ-111's just turned up. They should be able to deal with this guy. Fantastic. Now, that surviving E-100 up to the north is basically dead. There's no way they can get to him in time. There are enemy tanks that they're going to have to fight their way past in order to get up there. At the moment he's on full health, but the sharks are circling. They can sense the blood in the water. They're closing in, and that E-100 is about to get kicked to death very, very quickly. That's going to leave just the 3 of them against 7 enemies. It's not undoable, however. I mean, Infinity has received the savage kicking and hardly has any health left, but he's in an Object 263, and the VK-100 and the WZ-111 mostly still have full health bars. They need to take out this tank destroyer, however, because he is currently spotting them all for artillery, so they need to kill this guy before the rest of his team turn up. That's a good start. WZ-111 puts a shot into him. The VK pops out, takes a hit, but manages to finish him off. And here comes the outflanking force. Let's go to T-50. Bounce, boom. It's a good damage roll, but it wasn't enough to finish him. He did have just a little bit too much health left. Bounces another shot. Can't afford to let him get away and reload. Chases him right into the loving arms of the VK, who says, "Thanks very much. Very generous of you." Unfortunately, they've just lost the WZ-111 to that Type 61, and Infinity was looking for the killing shot at the Type 61, didn't have it, took the shot at the IS-3 instead. IS-3's run his tracks off. VK comes out, tries to take the hit for him, just not quite fast enough. IS-3 finishes him off with a shot to the lower glacis, and now the VK's the last one left alive, and you don't live long when there's an Object 704 on your flank, and that is pretty much game over. 9,000 damage done in the Object 263, and it's just not enough, is it? It's also worth pointing out that despite doing nearly 9,000 damage and getting the High Caliber award in the Object 263, that's only good enough for a First Class Mastery badge. So how did that disaster happen? Well, let's have a look at the rest of his team. You see, while it may have appeared from Infinity's perspective that the 4 surviving tanks left on the team at the end of the match had a pretty good thing going there, it's only when you come to look at the post-battle stats that you realise that the VK-100 and the WZ-111, up until that point in the game, in the dying minutes of the match, had done nothing. And the E-100 hadn't even done that much. The WZ-111 and the VK-100 did at least prove to be useful teammates in the last 2 minutes of the game, but the E-100 never fired his gun. So it's not even remotely surprising that he lost. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if Infinity had managed to pull off 12,000 damage with that team. That probably still wouldn't have been enough. Next up, we've got Nervy Word 5570 in the Cromwell B British Premium Tier 6 medium tank. Very, very good machine. Just like the non-premium Cromwell at Tier 6, it's very fast, it's very manoeuvrable, it's got a rapid-firing gun, and just like the non-premium Cromwell at Tier 6, it can't fit a vertical stabiliser. The British mediums don't get access to that particular piece of equipment until the Comet at tier 7. What's so good about having a vertical stabiliser, Jingles? Well, I would just like to draw your attention to my last Why You Have to Be Mad video, in which a Cromwell was in hot pursuit of an AMX ELC for the better part of 4 minutes. Must have fired 30 shots at him on the move, full speed at point blank range, and I think only 3 or 4 of them actually hit. No vertical stabiliser, you see. It's a very, very useful piece of kit. Now, Nervy Word has found himself in a tier 8 battle here on the Windstorm map. So that's a very, very hostile environment for a tier 6 medium, but he's going to make the most of it. And he does have some fairly strong backup there. A Rheinmetall Borsig, German tier 8 tank destroyer, armed with the devastatingly good 128mm gun. And with that kind of backup available, all you have to do is spot the targets and not get hit. And the Cromwell is pretty good at not getting hit. Doesn't like it when it does get hit, of course, because the armour's terrible. But it's quick, and it's manoeuvrable. Nervy's going to put that speed and manoeuvrability to the test as he heads out. Try to get some targets spotted, do what damage he can, but the majority of the damage is going to be coming from the big guns to the rear, and he spotted a Type 62, and he's about to make a sandwich between him, the Type 62 and the T21. He's taken hits from an AMX-12T, did bounce one of them, but he's managed to get into some concealment there, and he's starting to return fire as the T21 looks around to see what he can do around the other side of the rock here. A couple of seconds later, Nervy decides the coast is clear, decides to make a break for it. He's got his sights set on a VK3601H, gets himself into position and starts unloading at him. I'm not entirely sure what the Rheinmetall Borsig is capable of hitting from all the way back there. Looking at the map, I don't think he has a clear line of fire at anything, aside from Nervy. And in fact, yes, looking at it from his perspective, there isn't a single enemy tank that guy could have been shooting at from that spot. He can hit Nervy from there though. He just did. What the hell was that all about? I guess we'll never know. Because when Nervy asked him why he did it, his only reply was, that one's just going to have to remain one of life's eternal mysteries. In our next replay, there is no doubt whatsoever about what it is that motivates our scumbag to perform his act of scumbaggery. This one was sent in by Petresco. That's him in his T30. It's a tier 9 battle on Winter Ruinberg, and while he may be in a tier 9 tank destroyer, this is a stock tier 9 tank destroyer. He hasn't unlocked any upgrades for the T30. This is one of his first games, and that means he's using the 120mm gun, not the 750 alpha damage 155mm gun. Although I didn't mind playing with the 120 when I was grinding my T30, it actually works reasonably well on this machine. You definitely want the big gun, but it's not really a painful grind because the gun performs way better on the T30 than it does on the T28 prototype at tier 8, and it can catch people by surprise as well because it's very difficult to tell just by looking at the T30 which gun it's got, and the faster reload with the 120mm can really take people by surprise. And while this particular replay, even though it was submitted by him, isn't really about Petresco, it's nice to see that he does at least know what he's doing. He's reverse side scraping with the T30 on the corner here. At the moment, using the IS-6B, who's with him, as cover, but even without the IS-6B, he would be able to... Nice shot there at the Tiger II. Well, you'll see the way he handles the machine. He clearly knows what he's doing. And this is an example of the Tiger II getting caught out. Nice little Amarak there, getting caught out by the unexpectedly fast reload of the 120mm gun on the T30. IS-6B up there clearly doesn't have a clue about armour angling. Just rolled out sideways on in front of a whole bunch of enemy guns and took one right in the side. And that has apparently scared him because he's about to run off and leave Petresco all alone on this corner. But like I said, this isn't really about Petresco, so we're going to fast forward to where he meets his untimely demise at the hands of an enemy E75 after the Foch on the enemy team has unloaded his pockets at him. Panther 88 over there that Petresco really, really wants to kill. It's going to take a couple more shots, however, but, well, 120mm gun, while it doesn't have the 750 alpha damage, it does reload and fire a lot faster, and here comes the E75. And somehow manages to make a bit of a dog's breakfast of this kill. It should have been easy. E75 drives into him, but Petresco is determined to finish that Panther 88, gets the kill. E75 takes a hit, premium fire extinguisher at work there, manages to finish Petresco off on his second shot. Unfortunately, that's all he's going to get, because he gets knocked out too. It's a shame there wasn't any cover there that the E75 could have used, aside from the wreck of the T30 that he just killed, but no. Taking covers for noobs instead, he's going to drive out sideways on, in front of the Foch on Petresco's team. He's the guy who killed him, and he's the guy that this particular replay is about. Up until this point, the outcome of this game was in doubt, but with the third kill on the E75 about to be followed up by his fourth kill as he hits the IS-3, sets him on fire and burns him to death, this Foch has been doing incredibly well, and they've actually got the advantage now. You'd think clutching a game like this would be something that the Foch might actually be happy about, but he isn't. In fact, he's so unhappy about it that he's decided this team no longer deserves his services, which is a little bit opinionated of him. I mean, okay, he ended up doing just under 4,000 damage, but that's not spectacular. It's alright, it's pretty good, but it's certainly not great. And there were half a dozen other players on the team that did around or more than 2,000 damage. But no, he's too good for this team, they don't deserve him, so he's going to go and hide in the corner of the map, all the while crying in chat about how his team don't deserve him. And you know what? I agree with him. No, wait, don't panic, don't get the pitchforks and torches out just yet. I agree that his team don't deserve him. They deserve far better than this whinging, crybaby little shitstain who's so full of his own sense of self-importance that he's decided that his team don't deserve to win with him, and so they can lose without him. Fuck him. I hope he dies. I hope he dies of a horribly disfiguring, flesh-eating disease that starts on his face. It's self-serving, egotistical, self-entitled shit-stains like this cock-goblet that ruin a game's online community. With a little bit of luck, all of his teeth will rot and fall out except for one, so it can give him toothache. Geez, don't hold back, Jingles. Say what you mean, why don't you? It's true, though. This guy's nothing special. His arse points downwards just the same as everybody else. He's a little bit better than everybody else on his team at playing pixel tanks. That does not make you a nice person. Look at him. What a scumbag. Now, I'd love to be able to tell you that surviving AMX 1390 found and killed the Foch, because that would just be fantastic. Unfortunately, we're not that lucky. I'd love to be able to tell you that the UDES 03 on the team found and killed the AMX 1390, but we're not quite that lucky either. But the AMX 1390 did find the Foch. But there's only one thing that arsehole prima donnas like this Foch player value more than being able to lord it over their teammates in chat, and that's looking after their precious WN8 rating, and he just couldn't bring himself to die at the hands of the AMX 1390 in case his precious stats took a dip, so he was finally forced to fight and finish the game. I hope he gets herpes, because it's the gift that keeps on giving. Well, as is becoming traditional at this stage in an episode of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, you probably need a little bit of cheering up by now. Step forward, I'll have a go at pronouncing his name, Yinogu. You know, if you're going to make your names hard to pronounce, don't be surprised when I keep mispronouncing them. I can't be expected to handle this. I'll have a stab at continuing to call him Yinogu rather than Dave for the rest of this video. Yinogu is in the T69 American Tier 8 medium tank. It's a Tier 8 battle. He's one of only 3 Tier 8s on his team here on the Normandy map. What can we say about the T69? Because it is not a particularly well-loved tank, and there are some very good reasons for that. Stock, it is dreadfully bad. This tank is preceded by the T71, which is a Tier 7 light tank, and the T71 has better firepower than a stock T69. Work that one out if you can. Even when fully upgraded, the T69 with the 90mm autoloader has worse penetration with its armor-piercing shells than any other Tier 8 medium tank in World of Tanks. This thing practically begs you to spam premium ammunition. And the premium ammunition on this thing isn't even that good. It's not like the Soviet Object 416 Tier 8 medium tank that gets 201mm of penetration with its 100mm armour piercing and 330mm of penetration with its high explosive anti-tank premium ammunition and better accuracy and better aiming time. Now with the T69 fully upgraded, you get 181mm of penetration with its 90mm armour piercing and only 250mm of penetration with its premium high explosive anti-tank, and you also get 300 less damage per minute than a tank like the Object 416. So what does the T69 do that the Object 416 can't? Well, it does have a very, very fast cycle time between the shots on this 90mm autoloader. It only takes around about 2 seconds to rechamber a fresh round, and a full reload of the autoloader takes around about 26 seconds. That's not too bad. What that means is that what the T69 is very, very good at is finishing tanks off. It doesn't have the raw damage output from its full-shot 90mm autoloader to take on and kill a full health tank at the start of a battle, unless that full health tank is a tier 6 medium. But it's very, very good at finishing off wounded targets, providing you don't have to shoot at them from the front because you only have 181mm of penetration unless you're prepared to put your hand in your pocket. You can certainly bully tier 6 tanks in this machine at the start of a battle, and if you get the chance you absolutely definitely should, because the T69 is an opportunity killer. And a KV-2 is a dangerous machine regardless of the tier of game that it finds itself in, so finish those little buggers off as quickly as you possibly can. There's his first kill. So, you've expended your magazine, KV-2's dead, now what you're going to do? You've got around 26 seconds to waste before that gun's going to be ready to go again. Don't waste the time. Don't just sit there staring at your next target, waiting for the gun to reload. Stop, pull the camera back, have a look around, regain your sense of situational awareness, have a look at the map, decide if you can afford to sit where you are and wait, or do you need to relocate? Yinogu's decided to relocate. There's an enemy 110 tier 8 heavy tank closing in, and he has enough health remaining that Yinogu can't kill him with one full load from his autoloader. And you don't really, if you can possibly help it, want to be sitting there trading shots with somebody from the front in the T69 because you don't really have any armour either. I mean, the turret's nicely rounded, you can get some bounces from it, but you shouldn't count on it. Instead, he's used the terrain to disengage, he's not spotted, nobody knows where he is, and he's going to see how much damage he can do to this 110 before... Oh, that is actually looking quite good. Now he might be able to kill him. There's one. There's two. There's three. Oh, it bounced. One left. Got him. Kill number 2. That's what the T69 is all about. The T69, like most autoloaders, is at its best when it's taken advantage of crippled tanks that don't even know where the shots are coming from. Oh crap, he has now of course been spotted, but too little too late for the VK, and he's going to be reloaded again soon. Can he make it across here without being spotted again? I think he did manage to get away with it, so the VK now thinks he's headed down the hill, when in fact he's heading in the other direction. So he's climbing up behind this bunker and windmill, and we're going to see what we can see from up here. There's that IS again. He's barely moved from the cap circle. Oh, he's been spotted. But wait, no. The IS is looking the other way. Okay, that one hit an obstacle. That one bounced. There's actually just a tiny bit of that IS that's poking out and is actually in direct line of sight. He only managed to hit him with the one shot, but he was lucky to do that. Well, he hit him with two. One of them bounced. And under the circumstances and at that range, and with the .38 accuracy of the 90mm gun, he was lucky to do even that. But now he's reloading again. And once again, while he's reloading, he's not in any immediate danger, so he's got the luxury of time. He can afford to stop and think about what it is he wants to do once he has reloaded. And that OI is definitely looking like a victim. He's a potential one-shot kill. Unfortunately for Yinogu, he's not alone. But Yinogu is confident he can kill the OI with one shot, and it's only going to take 2 to kill the ONI. So naturally, even firing premium ammunition and aiming for weak spots only one of them penetrates, because Japanese super heavies are what you get in World of Tanks when wargaming start running out of ideas, and even his premium ammunition struggles to penetrate those things. And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, he's now caught between a rock and a hard place. He's got the Oni behind him, he's got an IKV-65 and an IS in front of him. Takes a hit from the IKV, but his tracks absorb it. And I'm not entirely sure what this IS is doing, but, well, I mean, that could have been worse. It certainly couldn't have been much better. He's managed to get away with it. The IS is dead, the IKV is dead, and there's no sign of the Oni. Oh, IKV-90 on the hill behind him, which means he is forced to head back down the hill, but wait, there's an Oni waiting down there. Well, there is, and now there are only 2 tanks left alive on his team, but luckily the T-28 is in the perfect position to both dissuade the Oni from coming around the corner, and there he is, and he's finished him off, and potentially take shots at the IKV-90 if he comes over the top. He's managed to put 1 shot into the VK. I have no idea what happened to the second one. He bounced the VK's return shot, and now he's once again reloading. And at this point he is really counting on that T-28 to cover him while he reloads. To be completely fair to the T-28, the next time we see that IKV, he does only have 29 health left, but at this point the VK is by far the least serious threat, or he would be if he wasn't firing gold ammo as well. And the IKV knows he can't afford to sit there and get shot at by the T-28 again. So Yanogu makes sure to finish him off first, because he has by far the most dangerous gun. The T-28 can't help him with a VK, but he ends up not needing the help, and he finishes them both off. He has the barest sliver of health remaining. His turret was jammed and his tracks were damaged. He actually finished off the VK with a jammed turret. He had to move the tank in order to get... We now have a good news, bad news situation. Good news, it's no longer 4 against 2. It's now 2 against 2. Bad news, it's about to be 2 against 1, because the T-28 is in serious trouble. But the S1 is in siege mode and a sitting duck. So now the T-28 has been taken out by the VK. It's 1-on-1, and the final shot, which would have been the killing blow, misses. So he had the opportunity right there to end the match. 1 shot into the S1 killed him. 2 shots into the VK left him on about 130 health, guaranteed 1-shot kill, side of the tank, 0.38 accuracy, missed. So I think Yanogu is probably sweating bullets at this point. I mean, that VK can finish him off with high explosive. He only has 52 health left. Of course, he can kill the VK as well. So it's all going to come down to who gets that first shot off. Who's the most sneaky? Who's the most unpredictable? Who's going to get the first shot? Well, I did say you were going to get some good news after the previous 2 replays, because you deserve it. And I think Yanogu deserves it as well. 9 kills in the T-69. That's not bad in this tank. And that's it for this latest episode of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. I hope you've enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.